Well, the news that we were expecting for the most part has finally hit. Trevor Etienne, Florida Gators running back, is entering his name officially in the transfer portal, and we're going to talk about it here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I guess. Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And apparently, back-to-back days, your team twice a day. Happy Thursday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole Nine Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33. And Trevor Etienne has announced that he is entering the transfer portal. He's gone. No longer going to be a Florida Gator. This is something that we spoke about a week ago, maybe a little bit longer than that at this point now, where I said it was a legitimate possibility that Trevor Etienne was going to leave the Florida Gators. I will say I'm going to talk a little bit of trash to the listeners that were just like, he's not going. You're doing this for clicks. Do you know how stupid you look now? Yeah, all Florida Gators media just on the same day decided to tell you about this. This was expected for Florida. Honestly, I expected the announcement last Friday, and when it didn't happen Friday, I was told to expect the announcement Monday. Why he waited until today to do it, I don't know. Maybe he was still thinking it over and just wanted to be completely sure of his decision, whatever it was. I don't care. More power to him. I'm not going to sit here and cry about losing him. It absolutely does suck to lose Trevor Etienne. I know that I'm someone who going into last season, I was like, you know what, Montreal Johnson's the better overall back. And then this season came and I was just like, look, Trevor's the better overall back now. And Montreal's still very good. My expectation would be that Montreal Johnson returns to Gainesville. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, there's no other way to put it other than this sucks to lose Trevor Etienne. It absolutely does suck. This is something where you don't like to lose him, but it is what it is. And a big part of this comes down to winning. Like that's one of the factors that went into this decision for Trevor Etienne to leave is winning football games. From what I was told, it was NIL, winning football games. That's mostly what it came down to. So when we talk about that, you can try to get into a bidding war, but I don't think that's the approach you should have taken anyway. And then as far as winning goes, you can't prove that you would be able to win games until you actually got there. So it's asking for a lot of faith there. I'll get to the chat in the second half like always, but I see someone going, oh, imagine if Mullen had the same resources as Billy, a new DC, recruiting staff and all that. The thing is, Mullen didn't care about any of that. So stop with the hypothetical of what if Mullen had all this? Mullen could have did a lot of things. He chose to roll with Todd Grantham. So you can say that you think Billy Napier's not the guy. Mullen wasn't either. And it's stupid to even go, which one's better? You're wasting your time. Okay? If you don't think Napier's the guy, we know Mullen wasn't the guy, then what's it matter? You're just wasting your time there. But losing Trevor Etienne sucks. Again, if you have stuff in the chat, we'll get into it in the second half. I see someone said, give me some hope here. And Peyton, I can't give you too much. I can say that I know that NIL was at least a factor in this. You didn't spend that money on Trevor Etienne. You didn't spend that money on Jordan Seaton. Take that NIL, the available funds, go into the transfer portal and get starter quality offensive linemen. I was happy with Jake Slaughter at center and Richie Leonard at left guard. You could replace left tackle, right guard, and improve your offensive line. Okay? Even if that means move Austin Barber to the right tackle spot, bring in a new left tackle, like move Austin back there, whatever it is. Beef up your offensive line. Get your offensive line better, because you're not going to replace Trevor Etienne immediately, but spend that money on beefing up your offensive line. Your passing game will get better because you'll have better blockers in front of Graham Mertz, and he needs that. Your running game will probably have a very similar level of production because, yes, you don't have Trevor Etienne running the football, but you have Montrell Johnson, Kanan Daniels, whoever else you may bring in, and Trayon Webb running behind a better offensive line. This sucks. Like, there's no way to cut this kindly. This is the second day in a row where the Florida Gators have lost arguably their best player on that side of the ball. I don't think defense, you could really argue it. It's Princely. I don't care how much you liked or didn't like him. He's the best player on the defensive side of the ball, maybe the best player on the entire team. And then you lost Trevor Etienne. You could argue Ricky Pearsall is a better overall player. But either way, you lost one of your best players on both sides of the ball. Back-to-back days, you lost someone. And this is my continued point. If you're part of the subtext group, which subtext 2 weeks free, $5 a month after that, links in the description, or just go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGators. You get some inside information. I sent one out this morning that I will share with you now here. I spoke to one of the Florida Gators that hit the transfer portal this cycle, and I asked why that player left. I got two main reasons. And the two main reasons were development and the strength and conditioning staff. Those were the two main reasons that I got. That player left for that reason. We talked about Princely yesterday, and that was the reason that he left. Development, strength and conditioning, winning football games. These are not the transfer portals out of control issues. These are coaching staff issues. Billy Napier needs to lock the hell in and finish this offseason strong. Because I said before the season, or I said during the season, this was the offseason where we find out if Billy Napier stands a chance in hell at surviving and becoming a successful Florida Gators head coach. And it's not going off to a hot start by not replacing the coaches that you fired, not naming an offensive coordinator, and losing arguably two of your best players. I get it. The transfer portal is wild. You see great players leaving for seemingly no reason. It's probably often to chase NIL or differences with the coaching staff or whatever it might be. However, you're losing your star players at Florida. You're not losing your star players at Tulsa. Hell, Boise State kept Ashton Jeanty, their star running back. Boise State kept their star player. Florida can't keep their star players. That's an actual issue. And I'm not someone who's doom and gloom. I'm not someone who's saying fire them, get it over with. I'm not that type of person. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that if this offseason is where we say, hey, Billy Napier needs to lock in and Billy Napier needs to really show us what he's made of, he's not doing that right now. And there has to be some sense of urgency with this coaching staff. How do you replace Trevor Etienne? You don't. You can try to replace his production by beefing up the offensive line. You try and go get Jared Gibson. The Florida Gators recruiting staff is trying to flip two running backs right now. Jared Gibson, Jaden Ball. Those are very public names that we've talked about multiple times. You're looking for Jared Gibson, Jaden Ball. Flip one of them this weekend. Get your second back in this 2024 class. Have Montrell come back, convince him to come back instead of declaring for the NFL draft. Again, I think Montrell would actually benefit from coming back for another year. So that's why I'm not as concerned, because I do think he would genuinely benefit from another year showing what he can do as an actual running back working out of the backfield. He led the team in drops. He did not lead the team in targets, wasn't even close to it, but he led the team in drops. So he has room to grow and room to improve and show the NFL that He also didn't have a fantastic year compared to last year. We'll get to the chat in a minute, but I mean, I genuinely don't know. Like, I can't spin this positively. You lost a damn good running back. I can't. We'll get to the chat in a minute. Before we get to the chat, today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. It's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, more. If you bet on tonight's Thursday night football game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New England Patriots, just go ahead and dial the 1-800 number, brother, because you need it. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season right. Remember that FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. This bonus episode of Locked On Gators is also brought to you by Prize Picks, and Prize Picks has been the best way for me to make money playing daily fantasy sports this year. If you've got skills and a little bit of time, you can turn $10 into $250 with a few easy taps and research. It's simple, easy to play. You get quick withdrawals. Nothing irritates me more than having to wait to get my money that I won. That's irritating, and it's what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Remember that Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're just joining us now, thank you. Almost 200 people in here in the middle of the day on a Thursday. That is bonkers. If you haven't yet signed up for Subtext, go to joinsubtext.com/lockedongators, or you can check the link in the description below. You'll get insight. You'll get a whole bunch of inside information that we're talking about right now during this transfer portal window, during the recruiting period. But yeah, Trevor Etienne's gone. We're going to hit the chat now. Man, it's heartbreaking. I'm not going to go through this entire chat because there are a ton of messages. So if you have a question or anything, just keep it going. Hey Duke, yeah, I love how the flow keeps flowing as well. That's a lot of time. Phoenix Ride, yes, smash the like button. I never asked that. I'm very bad at doing that. Yeah, this is who will take this job in the future if we don't give coaches at least a few years to get their players in. That's an interesting question. The honest broker. That is a very interesting question for you to say, who will take this job in the future if we don't give coaches at least a few years to get their players in? And the reason that I like that question is because Trevor Etienne was a Billy Napier player. Trevor Etienne was a Billy Napier player. Kamari Wilson was a Billy Napier player. Chris McClellan was a Billy Napier player. Caleb Douglas was a Billy Napier player. Andrew Savai was a Billy Napier player. Max Brown was a Billy Napier player. Jalen Farmer was a Billy Napier player. Jordan Herman was a Billy Napier player. Ty Bowman was a Billy Napier player. David Connor was a Billy Napier player. That's what, 10 from his first recruiting class alone? He took 21 high school enrollees, or high school and JUCO enrollees that year. 10 are gone. Half of the class. Look at the 2023 class. Will Norman was a Billy Napier player. Billy Napier's got his guys in. He hasn't retained them. That's an issue. I understand the Mullen players' excuse when you look at some of the product on the field, but the fact remains that even when Billy Napier has gotten his players in, he hasn't retained them. That's an area where he needs to improve. And again, what I shared earlier, if you didn't listen, or if you're not in the subtext where I sent it out this morning, if you weren't listening earlier in the show, I said I spoke to a player that entered the transfer portal out of Florida, and I asked, "Hey, why'd you leave?" And he said the main reasons: development and the strength and conditioning program. And it was like this is players that this is a thing that shouldn't be happening in Florida. It shouldn't be. So that's why we can talk about, well, if we don't give coaches time, you're in a transfer portal era where players can leave for any reason at any time and go somewhere else if they're unhappy with your program. I understand that that's also, it's a catch-22, because if you give someone time and he's just not the guy, then you're burning 3, 4 years, 5 years of your program. But at the same time, if you're bringing in your guys and you can't keep some of them, you can't keep your star players. It's not like you're only losing depth pieces. You lost a star player that you brought in. That has to fall back on you. We can't just excuse that. Like, I'm not saying fire him. That's not me at all. I'm not the type of guy to say that. But I am saying that a good deal of the things that are going on, you can't excuse anymore. They're not trending positively. And Chris Sorley, you said Napier gets fired in the 24 season and Lagway transfers. That's a very real possibility. We can't even go, oh, as long as Billy Napier stacks the cupboard for the next guy, then I'm okay with it. Because even if he does stack the cupboard in the transfer portal era, anything can happen and a player can just leave. So it's not just about stacking them. You have to win games. You have to be aggressive here. And the issue is you're not aggressive. You're just cooked. There's no other way to put it. You have to be aggressive here. And that's not what happened so far. Chris Taylor said, not going to lie, if I was Etienne, I would leave too. I get it. I'm not going to say that I would leave, but I get it. I'm not going to be mad whether it's NIL, whether it's whatever. I will say this. It's not just like playing time. Trevor Etienne, in terms of playing time, was in a pretty ideal situation. He pretty much split carries with Montreal Johnson. So he had plenty of film to put out for NFL teams to see what he can do. And he wasn't getting run into the ground. So he was getting healthy, or he was not getting more hurt than he could have, which, by the way, he didn't even stay healthy splitting the carries. And also, for the love of God, stop bringing up pass blocking. This is me saying this. Like, I think I am the guy that cherishes running backs in pass protection and loves talking about it. And we talk about the playing time. Stop talking about it, because I brought it up last year and you guys, a bunch of Florida Gators fans, were telling me, no one cares about that. Just give him the ball. So if you were the type where when I brought up his pass protection as a freshman and as a sophomore, and you were like, no one cares, just give him the ball, he doesn't need to pass block, you have no right to bring this up now. Okay? And let's say this is an NIL thing. I've said this before. If you are not part of Florida Victorious, I don't want to hear your opinions about NIL. Simple as that. I don't want to hear your complaints about NIL if you're not part of Florida Victorious, which, by the way, sign up 20% off your first month using promo code LOCKED. But yeah, I will say that this isn't something that you can just go, okay, it's over, whatever. No big deal. We'll replace it. You don't replace a player like Trevor Etienne. You don't replace players like Princely Umar. However, if you lose them, you want to lose them to the NFL. Florida's losing them to other schools right now, and development, strength and conditioning are the reasons. Fix the issues. Otherwise, you're just living for a buyout, and that's it. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be back tomorrow or later. More bad things can happen. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Follow my written work with Whole Nine Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33. And as always, I will see you all when I see you.